Welcome to episode 800 of Apartment Hacker. This is Mike Bruin at Apartment Hacker. It's my mission to tease out human potential in the multifamily space. So I'm very excited today. We have a very, very special guest, a brand new team member to the Radco family, which, as you all well know, that's where I spend most of my daylight hours. Bob, welcome to Apartment Hacker.
Thanks, Mike. Happy 800th.
Oh, man. You get the designation of the 800th episode.
I think I knew Apartment Hacker when it was a wee little...
It was a wee
hacky.
Little. It was, yeah. I'm gonna resurrect episode 1 sometime in post. Yes. It's awful. Yes. Not that I'm any better today, but I don't care. All right. So Bob, I just wanted to, by way of quick introduction to the Apartment Hacker community, just have you talk about your origin story in brief, what got you into the business, and where you are. You kind of went from the multifamily space. Well, I know there's a story prior to that, but the multifamily space to the vendor side of the multifamily space, and then back into the residential side. So I'm interested in how that happened.
Well, so thanks for having me on. I feel honored, the 800th. You know, and just happy to be on board with Radco companies as well. Heading up corporate services, our shared services areas, and could not be happier to take that on and join an incredible group of team members to just kind of scale the company.
We're jazzed to have you.
Yeah, so anyway, to your question, how did I get started? So it was back in 95, and you and I have some common roots at Equity Residential back in the 90s, but really, I came from outside the industry in 95, and I met a gentleman who was doing work for Equity Residential, and at the time, he just referred me to the HR department in Tampa office of Equity Residential for a national marketing director position. I went in, I interviewed a couple times, and 3 weeks later, I started in Equity Residential. And, we were, about 60,000 units. We grew to 224,000 units. Super intense growth. And needless to say, it was a great ride, 10 years, and that's how you and I met as well during that time.
That's absolutely right. So I'm interested. And I've seen this happen many times with people in the industry. They'll work on, let's call it one side of the business, and let's, in this case, residential. Then you make a segue over to the vendor side, right? Yeah. Only to come back to the residential. So I'm interested to know kind of your perspective going from residential over to vendor side, and then what prompted you to make your way back to the residential side?
It was pertinent and relative from a timely standpoint, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But from 95 to 05, and really the early days of entering into the apartment industry, I really understood very, very quickly that we were a highly decentralized industry, even before technology. Back in 95 to the late 90s, there was not a lot of technology integration, so there was a lot of manual to do, especially on the sales and marketing, leasing and marketing support side.
That's right.
And so I quickly learned that having processes and systems that would help me do what I was doing to support the organization was really, really important. Mm-hmm. And I was able to carry that over to my later positions with Colonial Properties Trust after Equity Residential. And then also with Lane Company, most recently prior to my Benson experience, Benson Integrated Marketing Solutions. But so I had 3 experiences on the client side: Equity, Colonial, 2 public REITs, and then went to the management company side with Lane Company, now CF Res.
Right, that's right.
And when the bottom dropped out in the market in 08, one of the worst economic conditions, in our industry. I found myself just kind of looking for other opportunities. And coincidentally, I had partnered with Brian Benson at Benson Integrated Marketing Solutions over my entire career in multifamily. All 3 of those clients, I centralized all marketing, all things non-media marketing with Benson, even before technology, before the smart stores, before the pure web to press that Brian and Benson has right now. And so right at that moment, in the worst kind of economic condition that we had, I really wanted to go over to the vendor side, because what Benson had at the time was just so life-changing for me as an individual, supporting a multifamily company, just in terms of efficiency creation.
Yeah.
So I joined Benson for about a year consulting, and 11 years later I was still there. And,
That's awesome.
So needless to say, we went from a very, very small company to a very large, I guess, mid-sized company.
Yeah.
And so that was my journey from the client side to the vendor side. And I just really wanted to share what I had experienced in terms of a vendor partner to the whole industry. And was able to do that for the 11 years I was at Benson. It was great.
So that's a nice segue to a question. I'm actually going to skip over to the next question and then come back to it. So I read an article recently that I think was posted on Multifamily Insiders and maybe on LinkedIn by Brent Williams, which is a tremendous resource for our industry, by the way. I don't plug that website and that community enough here on ApartmentHacker, but the article, the gist of the article was that vendors are people too, and it sort of dove into the idea that vendors, not the idea, but rather the fact that vendors many times get treated very poorly from the residential side, people on the residential side. And I know, and I own this, there are times where if I get hit at the wrong moment with yet another email or yet another phone call, I have a tendency to just let loose in not the best and most professional way on vendors. I have in the past. I've tried to get very, very much better over the years in terms of that, but it's not fair, right?
Yeah.
Because that is their job, that is their livelihood. And so I'm interested to know, it sounds like your experience at Benson was awesome. It was amazing. You're developing relationship, but did you experience that? If so, what can you talk to our community about, especially those folks on the residential side? Hey, look, vendors are people, right?
Yes.
People first.
Yes.
So what can you?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you,
on that
people
side?
are people, right? And
Right.
And so there are times when something like that happens, and I think we all know when we catch people at a bad moment, right? And what I found really quickly, though, and this was integral to going on the vendor side. So, I mean, maybe this is food for thought for anybody that's on the vendor partner side, is that, and certainly I was in sales. You know, I was bringing on the new business for Benson Integrated Marketing Solutions. But I found out early on that if I approach the relationship with a prospective client on the multifamily side with, I'm just selling something, features, benefits, here's what our product does, here's how good we are, that's a bad strategy, right? And so, and maybe by trial and error, and I found this out, is that, you know, the key responsibility of a vendor partner is to approach the client partners from an understanding of saying, hey, what problem are you dealing with today, and how can I understand it better, and then maybe help enable you to be successful with what I have, by the way, to sell you, right? And completely different approach, but that is an approach that I was able to utilize at Benson, and in order to really grow my relationships with folks I've known for years and years and years in the industry, and then also brand new people that I've met too.
Right.
So
that makes total sense. I think it's that relationship first, then by default a sale comes along in the future. Is that?
Yes, it's very the the Stephen Covey kind of approach is seek first, understand. You know, it's a base. I didn't make that up. You know, it's a very basic thing. But oftentimes when you're on the vendor side and you have a budget to and sales to close, sometimes people can lose sight of that, right? And but yeah, so that's just kind of food for thought. But I knew with what I had at Benson, what I had experienced as a client partner, that I wanted to share it with those that I knew firsthand in the industry. And it was more or less just a conversation amongst friends. And that's what our industry is all about, right? It's so large, but it's so close knit. And that's what I realized in our industry, though. And I've been in at least, this is probably the fourth industry over my whole career. I've noticed that this industry, compared to other industries, really has that as special to it, is that it's so close-knit.
True statement.
Even vendor and clients, are close-knit together. And I think that's an opportunity for all of us.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes. No problem.
One more sort of kind of deeper question before I go rapid fire and we'll close out the segment. So over the course of the next 10 years, so forward look, what is most pronounced and most important to you in terms of your professional career over the next 10 years?
Oh gosh, wow, that's a big 10 years. God, 10 years. Gosh, how about 10 days?
Okay,
No,
we'll go for 10 days.
No, so 10 years. I would have to say, there's really two specific things in this next chapter, I would say, in being with the Radco team. Is number one, I really want to lead my organization within the organization and be able to understand what tools can I provide to my downline to help them be really successful. Help them to really love what they're doing, and that's first and foremost. I really want to understand how I can help my downline be successful at what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm very much a fan of the thought that, yes, we're a financially driven industry. We got to, cut expenses, increase top line revenue. But at the end of the day, I think every task our people have to do will be taken care of for the most part. We get the right people in place and empower them and make them feel like they have the tools they need to be successful. So that's number one. Number two is really, I think we're on the precipice of just kind of complete change with regard to how the apartment industry is serving consumers.
True statement.
And serving one another.
That's right.
As well. I mean, I think, let's face it, Amazon may not be a direct competitor of ours, but they're really setting the pace with regard to how the consumers demand
That's right.
that
That's
things
exactly right.
are executed in an easy way. It's got to be easy for people. So it's up to us to figure out how can we establish our organization so that we can make it easy for renters, for prospects, for our own people, and then ultimately for our investors in the return. So does that make sense?
It absolutely it absolutely does. Rather, I think Amazon has made business frictionless, and that's how people expect to do business. So we need to adapt and make our platform just as frictionless.
What I love about that too, I just read an article yesterday about how Amazon Prime members, it may not even be an issue to even have Amazon Prime anymore because of the pressure that they're getting from the Walmarts and their big competitors is next day shipping is becoming a norm.
That's right.
So why have to pay for it through Prime? It's just going to be included.
So
those that think, okay, we need to deliver really, really quickly. Well, the clock is ticking on how fast we respond. Not necessarily to have an answer for somebody, how fast we respond to our clients and internal coworkers.
It's exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, so we're going to segue to some rapid fire questions and we'll wrap up here. So
800 of them?
There's only 4.
Oh, okay.
So 800.
One for each 200 episodes.
That's right. I like that. Okay, good math. All right. So if you could have a billboard anywhere in the world, what would it say? Like everyone could see it.
Me personally?
Yeah, it's your billboard, it's your message, and the whole world can see it.
Well, so, I mean, gosh, first thing that came to mind, I'll just say first thing that came to mind is something that I have on one of my social media subtitles is, how can I serve you well?
I like that. That's a good one. Okay. All right. What is the book that you gift most often and or have gifted recently?
What is the book? Gosh. There is a handbook to leadership book that you're familiar with. I gifted that to you.
That's right.
And it's by Ken Boa. It's a handbook to leadership, and I believe it's one of the best ways for somebody to understand, how to kind of navigate their leadership existence, their personal life, their faith life, and their work life together.
Yeah, it's a very holistic sort of
It
view
is.
of the world.
It
yeah,
is.
Yeah, I highly recommend that book.
Yes.
By the way, 2 endorsements. There you
Yes,
go.
there you go.
All right, your favorite activity outside of work?
Cycling.
Cycling.
Love cycling. So not the vroom vroom, but the pedal.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. All right, and then what is your last word to the Apartment Hacker community before we sign off here?
Oh gosh, hacker community, yes, I want to speak to really what I mentioned earlier, and Mike, you piggybacked off of it, is the change that's going on in the consumers' minds, in the prospective renters' minds. And I'll just leave you with this food for thought. When you think about it, an apartment prospect, when they walk into a leasing office, they're pretty much doing the same thing that they've done since maybe the 80s, right? more or less,
Very
maybe
true.
different environments. So
Right.
I would say the challenge for us is to understand how can we, before that prospective resident comes into the office, or before they even call, to understand we have an understanding of what Mike Brewer wants in the apartment in my community before they even call.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I think we're this close to being able to put that all together through artificial intelligence, business intelligence, and through a lot of just creative thinking and execution. So that's.
That personalization or customization of one's experience, and you're so right.
So I think we should all just buckle up around that. And,
Put on your seatbelts. All right. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bob.